Democrats resurrect their smear campaign against Justice Brett Kavanaugh with another vague and uncorroborated allegation from the New York Times. And then the election in Israel takes an interesting turn. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the Gun of Freedom Show. Alrighty, guys. I hope everyone has had a great week so far. Happy Friday. We have a lot to get to today, so let's not waste too much time. So before we actually get to the actual topic of the episode, let's go back in time. Let's do a little time travel. So about this time last year, there was this big controversy in the news cycle involving Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who was back then just a nominee for the Supreme Court. And those of you who were following the news cycle probably know what the controversy was. But those of you who weren't, here's the gist of it. So there's this woman named Christine Blasey Ford who accused Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault. And those who don't know the details of the allegation, here's the basic details. So she alleges about some 37 years ago that she was at a party, Brett Kavanaugh was at a party, and then when she went upstairs to go to a bathroom or something, Brett Kavanaugh then pushed her into a bedroom along with another guy named Mark Judge. Then Kavanaugh pinned her to a bed, tried to, start groping her, trying to take her clothes off and everything. And then when she tried to scream for help, Kavanaugh then covered her mouth with his hand. And then she was eventually able to escape after Judge or jump on top of Kavanaugh or something, and then she went home, and that's pretty much it. And then just from the allegation itself, it's pretty awful. I don't know, how you can not look at the allegation and say, okay, that's really awful. But the problem is, there's no corroborating evidence to prove that this happened. The thing is that first of all, she doesn't remember the date, where it happened, what time it happened, or who took her there, who brought her home, and everything. She doesn't remember any key details that might help corroborate this claim. And plus, the witnesses that she listed out to corroborate the story, who were at the party, all have said they don't recall the party or even know Brett Kavanaugh. Even her own best friend, Leland Kauser, who I'll get to a little later, said that she doesn't recall the incident at all. So yeah. So you got that, and then around that same time, there was two other allegations that came up. One of them was from a woman named Deborah Ramirez, and she alleges about when they were both in college, Brett Kavanaugh and her were both in college, that they were both at some drunken frat party, and that he exposed himself to her. And then, again, with the same with the Christine Blasey Ford's allegation, she had no corroborating evidence. In fact, all the witnesses that she listed all have denied that this party ever happened. And then the other allegation was from a woman named Julie Swetnick, and she alleges about when Brett Kavanaugh was in high school and she was in college. So that's weird in itself that she was in college going to a high school party. So anyway, she alleges that Kavanaugh and some other group of guys were part of a gang rape train, that they were putting some kind of drug in the punch and then drugging some girls at parties and then gang raping her. And of course, again, there was no corroborating evidence. In fact, this woman, Julie Swetnick, has a history of making up sexual assault claims on multiple people. So, from the very beginning, that story was just bonkers from the very beginning. And plus, how you knew it was bonkers was Michael Avenatti was involved in it. So, yeah. So again, like I said, the Christian Blasey Ford allegation, while kind of credible, didn't have no evidence. Deborah Ramirez, not credible, and no evidence. Joel Swetnick, completely crazy. So you had all that. So, and you see all that, and normal people will see that and say, okay, there's no way to, like, we can't ruin a guy's life over this, so let's just put him in the Supreme Court. That's what Republicans were trying to do. But, of course, the Democrats, the Democrats basically took the allegations and just used it as a full assault against Brett Kavanaugh to try to keep him from getting on the Supreme Court. And it was, yeah, those of you who were actually following the controversy, it was terrible. It was awful. Yeah, like, Democrats were saying, of course, calling him gang rapists, and just trying to do everything in their power to try to keep him from the Supreme Court. And when there was the big hearing with Kavanaugh and Christine Blasey Ford happened, of course, Ford gave a very emotional testimony about her story. But then Kavanaugh came in to defend himself, and then, he was rightly ticked off at everyone. He's saying, basically saying that y'all have, basically unfairly come after me over unverified allegations of sexual assault, and then saying that this was just a political hit job against him, and he was exactly right. And then Democrats then said, oh, he lacks judicial temper, how dare he say that we're the partisan, he is the partisan. And that was another thing that annoyed me during that time, or saying, oh, Kavanaugh is partisan, he can't be on the Supreme Court. Okay, so why in the world is Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the Supreme Court? She is nakedly partisan on everything. She has openly bashed President Trump. So why is one okay, the other not? But of course, Kavanaugh was not being partisan in a way. He was defending himself against unverified allegations of sexual assault, and Democrats were relentless for it. But of course, despite all that, he had the decency to pray for Christine Blasey Ford with his daughters. And that was probably the moment that really saved his nomination. But then again, going from the week, after that, Democrats kept going and going and going. They were saying he perjured himself during the, hearing. He didn't. They were saying that since he, drank in high school, that he's off, he should not be nominated to the Supreme Court, which, okay. If that's the case, no one in government should be in the office right now. There are a lot of people right now in Congress who go out and drink regularly. So that argument doesn't make sense. And another argument they made is that he got mad when they accused him of gang rape. Seriously, how would you feel if someone came and falsely accused you of being a gang rapist? So, how can you not get mad at that? It doesn't make sense. And then they came after him and said, oh, he got emotional. So, he did, cry during the hearing, but he kind of had a right to. Then he's too emotional, he can't be on the Supreme Court. Again, and then they were pointing out things from his yearbook and everything, just trying to every single little thing they could find to get him off the Supreme Court. And thankfully, Republicans were not falling for it at all. But for one of the best parts of this whole thing was Lindsey Graham. And those of you who knew Lindsey Graham before the Kavanaugh thing, he was a very kind of a go along, get along kind of guy. He would not make waves with anyone, and then a lot of Republicans didn't like him. Like, he was just very easygoing. But the Kavanaugh thing just pushed him over the edge. Like, and at the Senate Judiciary hearing with him and Christine Blasey Ford, he like went off on Democrats. He went completely off, and it was awesome. And then you have Senator Grassley, who just like did not like fall for any BS that Democrats were throwing at him. Like, he was like saying, okay, we either have this hearing or we go for a vote, or to a vote. If y'all, or like, he kept asking for some like details or documents from Christine Blasey Ford's team about polygraph results and all that kind of stuff, and they refused to give it to him. So, like, he rightly pointed out, okay, obviously, y'all's documents don't support Christine Blasey Ford's claim, so that's why you're not turning it over. So it was really cool to see Republicans actually have a spine during that time. But overall, it was an awful experience. Like, it was the worst political smear I've ever seen in my life. Like, just, they did everything. They pulled all the stops to try to get this guy from getting on the Supreme Court. And they're doing all of this in order to protect abortion. That's literally what this was all about. To protect Roe vs. Wade. Because they were afraid that since Kavanaugh was on the Supreme Court, that he would vote, along with others, vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. Which, here's the problem. Kavanaugh is probably not someone who would actually vote to overturn Roe v. Wade. Like, he's a big believer in precedent, and a lot of Supreme Court nominees said, Roe v. Wade is precedent, so we're not going to touch it. So, if we were to say Ruth Bader Ginsburg, if she were to retire and replaced with someone like Amy Coney Barrett, then we'll have enough votes to overturn Roe v. Wade. Which I hope it comes. Like, Roe v. Wade was a garbage decision. Like, there's nothing in the 14th Amendment or anywhere in the Constitution that allows you to kill your unborn child. There's nothing there. So, again, that was pretty much all of this whole thing was about. And plus, that and trying to get votes to win in the 2018 election that was coming up in just a few weeks after that. Of course, it backfired dramatically. Yes, Democrats did have some kind of blue wave in the election that they did by the House. But I think if this whole controversy didn't happen, I think Republicans would have done a lot worse. Republicans still did pretty good. And in fact, I think if the election were to took place, like after that whole controversy, Republicans would have taken both the House and Senate, because the poll results after that whole thing were just disastrous for Democrats. Like, especially before the debacle, Democrats had probably about a 15-point lead in the House races. After the Kavanaugh thing, it went all the way down to about a 2 or so. So almost their entire lead were just demolished, just like that, during the course of a couple weeks. That's insane. And that tells you, while Democrats say, oh, Kavanaugh had no effect on the election. Okay, it kind of did. The reason why we did so well in the Senate is because of the whole Kavanaugh thing. So, and another way they try to pin this and make them look good, let's say Republicans are willing to defend rapists, or as long as they're on their side. First of all, okay, they were saying that another thing they were saying that even if the allegations were true, Republicans wouldn't want him off the Supreme Court, Which, I mean, okay. I mean, at the time, I was kind of wishy-washy about that. Since, I mean, I'd probably say he probably shouldn't be on the Supreme Court if those were true. But the thing is, they weren't true. That's why we don't want him on. We want him on the Supreme Court because we saw it as just complete smear. But they were saying, "Oh, Republicans are defending rapists and everything." Okay, this is certainly not true, and here's why. Republicans in Alabama stayed home and not go vote for Roy Moore because of the sexual assault allegations against him. If you recall Roy Moore's situation, he had a number of different sexual assault allegations against him, including a 14-year-old girl that he sexually assaulted when he was 30. And the thing is, these were corroborated. That there was multiple, like, for example, the situation with the 14-year-old girl and him when he was 30. This happened at a mall, and the thing is, she remembered the place, remembered the time, remembered the date, remember like where it happened and everything, and there was corroborating witnesses that verified that he was at the mall during that time. And the same thing with the other allegations, that they all said that he was at a certain place at that time during the incident. So, unlike Kavanaugh, these allegations had corroborating details. Now, were they all true? Maybe, probably not. Maybe they were, but there was certainly some support to the notion that they were true. I kind of think they were, just seeing all the evidence that came with it. And also, there was a lot of conservatives in 2016 that stayed home because of how Donald Trump has treated women in the past. So the idea that Republicans are fine or are okay with rapists being in power or anything is just utter nonsense. Again, Republicans are not okay with anyone who has raped a woman to be in office or any way, shape, or form. Like, rape is a horrible, awful, awful, awful crime to commit against someone. I think it's actually worse than murder in some instances. And I'm not in favor of really anyone who has done that to be in office, or in a sort of office, either Supreme Court or whatever. But the thing is, that's not what we're defending. We're not defending someone who has raped someone. We're defending someone who's being falsely accused of it. And Democrats had no leg to stand on here. Like, there were, who was it? Justin, Al Franken. Yeah, sorry. There was a guy named Al Franken who was accused of sexual assault, I believe. And then Democrats, of course, came out and defended him, saying, "Oh, that was a long time ago. Let's just let it go." And Republicans rightly pointing out the hypocrisy between that. Because Republicans, despite what Democrats would like to say, Republicans, for the most part, clean, like, if something like is bad going on inside the party, they clean out. Like, for example, Steve King. Like, he said some very bad stuff about white supremacy and all that were obviously racist. And he got censored from Republicans. But then you have people like Ilhan Omar on the Democrat side. And then Democrats have not done anything. Like Republicans came up with a anti-Semitic resolution in the House, and Democrats changed it to make it this broad anti-hate resolution, which is really gross at the time. First of all, anti-Semitism is different than other forms of they're different than other forms of, like, bigotry. It's It's completely different because, I'll talk about this some other time, but it is different. So when they talk about, Republicans have no values or anything, that's not true. It's really, yes, we may fail to live with those values every once in a while, but at least we have the values. Like, they have no standards whatsoever. They're willing to let anyone in their party as long as they get their agenda done. So after that long spiel, let's actually get to the whole topic that led us to talking about Kavanaugh in the first place. Because earlier this week, on Monday, the New York Times released a piece that basically outlined another allegation of sexual misconduct. So to give you some background of what kind of spun this up, there was two authors for the New York Times named Robin Pogrebin or something like that, and Kate Kelly, and they have written a book called The Education of Kavanaugh, an investigation. And it basically details what exactly was going on during the time, the details of all the allegations or whatever. So, and then after the book came out, they wrote this piece in the New York Times that basically, again, went over a little allegation of sexual misconduct that we didn't know before. And then here's the piece. And here's how it's titled. It's in the new news analysis session, which tells you that since it's the news analysis session, not news, that they knew that it didn't have any leeway whatsoever. But here's how it's titled: Brett Kavanaugh fit in with the privileged kids. She did not. They're talking about Deborah Ramirez. Deborah Ramirez's Yale experience says much about the college's efforts to diversify its student body in the 1980s. I should point out the good bit of this piece right here is about how Deborah Ramirez was less privileged than Kavanaugh or something. I guess that's supposed to mean that he most definitely disciplined her or something. I don't know how that works. Yes, I mean, she may have been less rich than he was, but that doesn't prove that he disciplined her. So, I don't know what they were getting at, but here's what the piece says. Excuse me, sorry. Deborah Ramirez had the grades to go to Yale in 1983, but she wasn't prepared for what she'd find there. A top student in southwestern Connecticut, she studied hard but socialized little. She was raised Catholic and had a sheltered upbringing. In the summers, she worked at Carvel dishing ice cream and commuting in the $500 car she bought with babysitting earnings. At Yale, she encountered students from more worldly backgrounds. Many were affluent, had attended elite private high schools. They also had experience with drinking and sexual behavior. Miss Ramirez, who had not intended to be intimate with a man until her wedding night, lacked. During the winter of her freshman year, a drunken dormitory party unsettled her deeply. She and some classmates had been drinking heavily when, she says, a freshman named Brett Kavanaugh pulled down his pants and thrust his genitals at her, prompting her to swat it away and inadvertently touch it. Some of the onlookers who had been passing around fake male genitals earlier in the evening laughed. To Ramirez, it wasn't funny at all. It was the nadir of her first year, when she often felt insufficiently rich, experienced, or savvy to mingle with her more privileged classmates. I had gone through high school, and I'm not the good girl, and one evening it was all ripped away, she said in an interview earlier this year at her Boulder, Colorado home. By preying upon her in this way, she added, Mr. Kavanaugh and his friends make clear that I'm not smart. Mr. Kavanaugh, now as justice on the Supreme Court, has adamantly denied her claims. Those claims become a flashpoint during his confirmation process last year, when he was also fighting other sexual misconduct allegations from Christine Blasey Ford, who had attended a Washington area high school near his. Ms. Ramirez's story would have seemed far less damaging to Kavanaugh's reputation than those of Dr. Ford's, who claimed that he pinned her to a bed and groped her and tried to remove her clothes while covered her mouth. But while we found Dr. Ford's allegations credible during a 10-month investigation, Ms. Ramirez's story could be more fully corroborated. During his Senate testimony, Mr. Kavanaugh said that if the incident Ms. Ramirez described had occurred, it would have been the talk of the campus. Our reporting suggested that it was. At least 7 people, including Ms. Ramirez's mother, heard about the Yale incident long before Kavanaugh was a federal judge. 2 of these people were classmates who learned it just days after the party occurred, and suggests it was discussed among students at the time. So it was basically saying that there was some people that heard it from other people that this incident happened. We also uncovered it. So basically, this is where we get to the other allegation. But let's again go back to Ramirez's allegation. While there was probably people talking about it during that time, the people like she listed at the party again denied that even happened. So here's the new allegation that the New York Times came up with. We also uncovered a previously unreported story about Mr. Kavanaugh in his freshman year that echoes Ms. Ramirez's allegation. A classmate, Max Steyer, saw Kavanaugh with his pants down at a different drunken dorm party, where friends pushed his genitals into the hand of a female student. Okay, first off, the allegation itself seems a little weird. Like, even if it were true, I don't see how that's Kavanaugh's fault. Yeah, he had his pants, he probably put his pants down himself, but his friends are the one that pushed him into the female student. It's very weird, a very weird allegation, because even stranger. What was that? Mr. Steyer, who runs a non-profit organization in Washington, notified senators and the FBI about this account, but the FBI did not investigate, and Mr. Steyer has declined to discuss it publicly, which is exactly why it probably really did not investigate, because first of all, like, the FBI really has no business investigating these claims. Like, this is not a federal crime. And second of all, like, he gave no witnesses, and then he wasn't really willing to talk in details about it. So, like, why would they talk to you? So, okay. We corroborated the story with 2 officials who have communicated with Steyer. The female student declined to be interviewed. Sorry, yeah. So, okay. First of all, when it says that we corroborated the story with 2 officials who communicated with Steyer, they read it right to make it seem like they corroborated the story. No, they corroborated that Mr. Steyer told people about it, like the FBI agents about it. They did not corroborate the actual story. So yeah. That's pretty much the gist of the allegation, and of course, Democrats took it as the advantage to once again smear Kavanaugh with anything they got. Like, we had senators, we had many people like, say, Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, Julian Castro, and all of them and Pete Buttigieg, who are the Democratic nominees for president in 2020. All of them came out and said Kavanaugh needs to be impeached, that the hearings we had were a sham, that the whole investigation was a sham, that he needs to be impeached. These allegations were true, they're credible, he needs to be impeached, whatever. So, again, there was no corroborating evidence. And in fact, what they left out, what they have here now, was they have this little section. Okay, let me start over. Sorry. When they first wrote this piece, they didn't include this little snippet. And what the snippet says, the female student declined to be interviewed and first say she does not recall the episode. In the original piece on Monday, this was not included. They conveniently left out that the female student in question of this allegation did not recall the incident. In fact, it was in the book. It was in the actual book that these authors wrote, and they intentionally left it out. And they made an excuse like, oh, the editors, put it in originally, but they took it out last minute. Like, that actually helps their case. In a way, that actually makes the whole situation worse. They put it in, but decided, oh, let's take it out, specifically in order to smear Kavanaugh. So, yeah, so we have, again, what we have here is another false allegation, and I can say false for the reason because the actual alleged victim said, okay, this didn't happen. I don't remember this. And of course, there were some Democrats saying, oh, like, you can suppress memories of bad trauma or something like that. Okay, I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but I don't necessarily think that's true. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. But, again, if she says that she doesn't recall it, and there's no one else that can verify that this party happened except for the guy who made the allegation, then the allegation itself is not enough to ruin someone's life. Like, what other like way are we supposed to interpret that, other than that was a false allegation that this guy made? But then again, this was all over the news, all over social media and all that. Just once again, Kavanaugh, exactly a year after the first incident, Kavanaugh once again being smeared by the Democrats and the media. And I was seriously hoping that it would not go to the extent that it went last year. Thankfully, it didn't. It only lasted about 2 days. But still, and the fact that it came up again was just disgusting. And that tells you that Democrats, they have no standards. Like, they're willing to destroy anyone who's in their way. And this is exactly why Republicans need to get out and vote for Trump in 2020. And in fact, if Democrats want to continue this sort of thing, that's going to be easy. But Republicans need to get out and vote, because every time I look back on the Kavanaugh thing and everything, I can't stomach having these people in office. I can't even imagine what they'll do. Especially people like Elizabeth Warren, who wants to basically turn this country into a complete socialist, hellhole. And Bernie Sanders and everything. So, again, Republicans need to get out and vote in 2020. So, while this was all in the news that day about this whole new allegation, there was another part that involved Kavanaugh in a way that was in the news that got no major media coverage, but it actually should have been front page news of every newspaper, and it involved Christine Blasey Ford and her friend, Leland Kaiser. So, Leland Kaiser basically said, she doesn't recall the story. She has no confidence in the story. That she basically said that it doesn't make sense. And here's where what she said. Sorry, let me actually find her actual. Basically, what she exactly said was that she didn't recall the get together or any others like it. In fact, she doesn't have any confidence in the story whatsoever. Okay, that alone discredits the actual allegation. But here's where the big part comes in. So, while she said this, Ford's team, Ford herself and people on her team, were pressuring Leland Kaiser to change her story. They were saying, "Come on, basically change your story, or we're gonna launch some kind of smear campaign against her." How in the world is that not front page news? That's obstruction justice, pretty much. So that's that. I think that's illegal, to pressure a witness to change their story to favor your allegation. That's just bad. That's really, really bad. And people Democrats are wondering why we don't really believe this allegation, because things like this, I'm sorry, this is why the media is just absolute garbage. They leave out key things like this in order to intentionally manipulate the news cycle to make it in favor of someone else and against another guy. So again, this is exactly why Republicans need to get out and vote in 2020. We cannot let Democrats get in power. So speaking of elections and everything, on Tuesday, Israel had their election with the prime minister election, and then it was a very tough fight. It was between the current prime minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Sorry if I got that wrong. And Benny Gantz. And it was a very tough fight. It actually went on through Wednesday and part of Thursday. So, and actually the official results came out late yesterday, and Benny Gantz won the election. He's now the new prime minister of Israel, which I liked. Which kind of sucks, because really, Benjamin Netanyahu was really a really good prime minister of Israel. He does a lot of good things. Of course, he did make some mistakes, but overall, he's a really good prime minister. But we'll see how this other guy does. He seems pretty good. He was a former military member of the IDF, so he probably would do pretty well. Probably be close to what Netanyahu did as prime minister. Alright, so despite all that, the media was just jumping up and down, yay, 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 Netanyahu's out of office. Then now we can get a peace deal between the Palestinians and Israel, whatever. But the problem is, they framed it in a way that seemed like Netanyahu was the only force between Israel and the Palestinians reaching some kind of peace deal or whatever. And when they say peace deal, they mean that they want the Palestinians to reclaim their territory, which is not going to happen. But the thing is, what the media has failed to let people know is that this guy Benny Gantz is just like Netanyahu on foreign policy. That he has said that he will not make any negotiations with the terrorists in the Palestinians, the Hamas terrorists. So basically, yeah, there's really nothing will change with Israel foreign policy whatsoever. So, and they were saying in the media after Trump saying, "Oh, he's gonna probably be anti-Israel now or whatever." Not true. President Trump actually said that he is in favor of anyone. He's in favor of Israel, no matter who's prime minister. And he came out and talked to Benny Gantz, which is that tells you like where President Trump sits on Israel. But people call him anti-Semite or whatever. It's obviously not true. People say the only reason he lied to Israel was because he was friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. That's not true either. He was friends with Benjamin, but he also loved Israel because he realizes that Israel belongs to the Jewish people. While it does belong to the Jewish people, it's one of the only democracies in the Middle East. So it doesn't make sense why like the media and the left just absolutely hate them. And the reason why I think they hate Israel so much is one of the reasons why they hate America is because the values that went into building the country. Like, America was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. And the same with Israel. It was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. And the left despises those principles. So they hate anyone who even remotely lives by that. So, again, nothing about Israel foreign policy will change. They won't make any negotiations with the Palestinian Authority wherever, or they won't make any negotiations with Iran. So, and they definitely won't back out of they won't kick the United States out of their allied group. That's not going to happen. And that's one thing I absolutely love about President Trump. Again, is that he's flat out said that the United States and Israel will always be friends. There's no way they're gonna turn to each other. We're gonna turn against each other, and he's gonna make sure that doesn't happen. And that's the far cry from what Obama has said. He was pretty much anti-Israel. So yeah. Alrighty, so let's get into good stuff and bad stuff of the week. So good stuff today is the raid on Area 51. Yes, the raid on Area 51. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why in the world are we gonna raid Area 51? Why not? It's important. We must find out if aliens are there. If aliens are there, we need to free them. We need to get everybody on this board. We need to get Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is going. So, why can't we go? In reality, this whole thing was a joke from the beginning. I mean, I've read probably about a dozen people showed up. Okay, and I'm pretty sure that people at Area 51, unless they actually start attacking them, the guards at Area 51 are not actually going to shoot them because they've probably seen this whole thing on the internet saying, "Oh, okay, it's a complete joke. If people show up, whatever." It was a joke from the beginning, but it was actually pretty funny for the most part. There was so many hilarious memes about this, Chuck Norris memes. There was actually a meme on YouTube I saw where they took the big battle from Avengers Endgame when everybody showed up, literally at the end, and then fought against Thanos' army. So they edited it in a way to put different names and faces of different people who said they're gonna show up. They put the face of Chuck Norris on Ant-Man. They put on Black Panther the face of Obama. I think on Groot they put Trump's face, and they had names throughout the different armies from Wakanda and all that, saying Kyle's, Karen's, whatever, some internet lingo that I don't fully understand, but it was still hilarious, very hilarious. See, but and again, most people knew from the beginning it was a joke, and people joked around with it. I've joked around with it, saying yes, we should go, we shall go. But then again, I mean, it was a joke. I mean, of course, people took it seriously, but overall, no one took it seriously. So let's get into some kind of the bad stuff of the week. So, in case you didn't heard, Justin Trudeau, who is the prime minister, or I forget what I believe it's prime minister of what they call it there in Canada, prime minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, is in a controversy involving when he was like way back when some videos, pictures, smudged about with him wearing blackface. Now, I realized this that blackface has a horrible history behind it. Like a lot of like back then, white people would wear it to mock African Americans, which is really, really terrible, and that's why blackface most of the time is seen as racist. But there's some instances where, yes, they probably shouldn't have done it, but they were doing it. They weren't doing it with the intention of mocking, essentially. Like in Justin Trudeau's case, he was basically at some like Halloween party or something, like called Arabian Nights or something like that, basically an Aladdin theme party, and then he wore a blackface or something like that. So, yeah, but then he got all sorts of controversy surrounding around him. And okay, yes, he did it himself, but I think okay, I'm not defending blackface whatsoever, but I think the whole thing was overblown, in my opinion. And again, it was years ago, so I'm like I said many times, I'm avidly against pulling someone's tweets or something they did, minute thing they did way back when, to use it to against them now. I hate it when left does it to like Tucker Carlson or Kyle Kashuv or anyone, and I hate it when people on the right do it. So again, it was overblown. The one thing that really bothered me at this whole thing is the hypocrisy from the left. Like they were defending, Justin Trudeau, rightly saying, okay, it was years ago, so why are we talking about this now? Okay, and they were right. It was years ago. But the thing is, and he said that he only did it as a kind of a Halloween type party thing. He wasn't mocking anyone. He was just kind of wearing a Halloween costume. He was wearing a costume that was the theme of the party. So, yeah, some people on the left were saying, okay, it was years ago, and it wasn't actually mocking anyone, so it wasn't really bad, and they were right. But the thing is, Megyn Kelly has, if you recall, Megyn Kelly used to have a show on NBC, and she said like the exact same thing that Justin Trudeau said. Basically, if you're, for example, if you admire someone like, I'll put it out there, like Michael Jackson or someone, if you wanted to go to a Halloween party looking like him way back when, like back in the 80s, and that if you're white, that would cause you some kind of face like paint or whatever, like kind of blackface, if you will. But Megyn Kelly said, if you're like doing it, of course, if you're doing it to mock African Americans, don't do it. That's flat out racist and bad. But if you're doing it as like some kind of Halloween like costume, or just doing it like if you're doing it kind of as a like admiration of the guy you're going as, like if you're doing that way, like she said, she doesn't see anything wrong with that, and she got flacked for it, and then she got fired from NBC. So I'm sorry, like I just can't stand double standard that the left has with this whole thing. Like, okay, it's okay if someone on their side does it, but when people on our side does it, it's very bad. Okay, how about this? if like people do this with the intention of mocking, let's all come out and say, okay, that's very bad, racist, don't do it again. And if like it was recently, maybe, I don't know, but if you do it as like the intention of just going to a Halloween party or like admiring someone, like kind of doing a remembrance to them, like I don't see that much bad about it, and we should all really be on the same page with that. Like this whole like double standards, like both sides do it. Both sides had double standards, and it just drives me crazy. Alright, I think that's really all I have for today. So, alright, before I go, so if you're into politics like I am, and you want some products that involve this area, like kind of involve politics and all that, what better way than go to look for those products than Amazon? Amazon is great. You can find literally anything. You can find couches, books, TVs, everything. I love Amazon. I have Amazon Prime, so that really helps too, because you can get stuff for cheaper, and you can get it 2-day shipping without any like delivery fee. So I mean, yeah, Amazon just is awesome. So books, for example, so you can get books like Bullies by Ben Shapiro. And I've read the book twice. It's really good, and actually kind of goes over what we talked about today about how the left uses tactics of intimidation to go after people on the right. And then we have Addicted to Outrage by Glenn Beck. And I know if I brought it up like last week, but again, it's a really good book. And again, this kind of involves the area of what we're like talking about today, about how the whole outrage culture and everything. So yeah, it's a really good book. Also, if you want to learn more about kind of the American founding, go like Better Work really needs to read these. But say if you want to kind of learn more about how America was founded and the details went into writing the Constitution and everything, what better book or set of like documents to read than the Federalist Papers? I have the entire thing like on my night desk. I have not read the entire thing yet. I know in summary what kind of they all say, but it's being that it was written in the 1700s, it is pretty difficult to read for the most part. Like the language they kind of use is just hard to follow. But thank God for Cliff Notes. You can kind of get it summarized. But then you can get products like that. You can get the Lefteers mug. Fortunately, again, it doesn't produce its own leftist tears like the Daily Wire Lefteers tumbler. But again, this is just a label that has just a mug that has a label on it. They can just show off to people. But you can get that and also the products, and then you can find those products in the link to the description down below, and there'll be quite a few, a little more than what I just mentioned. But other than that, like, share, and subscribe, and then I'll be back here next week. My name is Sean Clinton, and this is the Garden of Freedom Show.